I'm Jimmy.
Trevor.
Josh.
Alright, so mixed martial arts is a rapidly growing sport and more professional leagues are rising each year. However, MMA is largely misunderstood by a lot of the American public, and its legalization has become an issue in some states in the US and many other countries and provinces around the world. Many advocates of the banning of MMA simply don't know enough about the sport. So hopefully I can provide some insight into what MMA is and why it should be legal everywhere. Before we start, here's some of the sources where I found most of my information for the presentation. ifightsports.com, nj.com/sports, New York Times, PBS, SureDog, and New York Daily News. So to preface this argument, I'd like to start by saying my goal isn't to advocate street fights and brawling. It's to trying to legalize sanctioned MMA. And by sanctioned MMA, I'm talking about mixed martial arts fights that are governed by a sanctioning body that's appointed by the state in which the tournament is being held in. So before we look at the solution, we need to look at the problems. So MMA has become increasingly more popular over the last few years. Many states have already legalized amateur and professional MMA, but there's still a few states that haven't, which are...
Is it okay if I hold the phone like
Yeah,
this?
that's fine.
I don't know if it's certain.
That's fine. Yeah, there's still a few states that haven't legalized MMA, which are New York, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. So a lot of people don't think that's a huge priority in today's public, but it's simply an injustice that needs to be righted. So MMA has many unrecognized benefits and misconceptions that I'm going to share with you. The biggest misconception is that MMA is dangerous, which any combat sport has a level of danger, but according to Lawrence Epstein, MMA is certainly safer than many other sports out there. We'll start with boxing. Every year, 3 boxers die due to fight-related injuries. In the past 17 years, only 3 MMA fighters have died, and these 3 deaths were not in sanctioned MMA fights. From the football-related standpoint, the NFL records 9 concussions per week during the season, and a lot of the times these concussions aren't even reported. And then the ones that are, there's usually a minimum requirement of 1 week to sit out. In MMA, before and after each event, the fighters are looked over by professional doctors and given a full physical. So, Jimmy, go ahead and show the audience again. Okay. So MMA has also proven to be an outlet for troubled youth around the country. The structure and discipline gained from MMA training is very beneficial to anyone. There's actually a fighter by the name of Uriah Hall who admits to growing up in a troubled area, and when he signed up for MMA training, he admits that it changed his life and steered him on a path that he probably wouldn't be on today. And now he has a 6-figure contract with the UFC and has MMA to thank for that. So on top of all that, there's the economic advantage to MMA in the state that it's being held in. The average UFC event raises $15 million, and that's without pay-per-view or merchandising. That $15 million goes into the state. And then the events also bring in, on average, 50,000 fans, and that money is circulated through hotels and restaurants and the venue where the fights are being held. So let's get to the solution. So how do we get these last few states to see a little bit more clearly? The answer lies with the voters and the Senate. Every year for the past 5 years, there has been a push to legalize MMA in New York, and every year it gets shot down in what they call the assembly. And every state has one of these, and they're the final deciding factors on legislation. So the issue here is ignorance of the assembly. What we need is coalitions and organizations, which there are already many of, which are dedicated to educating the public on the safety of MMA and its benefits and the misconceptions that a lot of people have. So every person educated about MMA is a step closer in the direction of its legalization. I hope you now have a better understanding of mixed martial arts and why its illegality is hypocritical and unjust. In addition, I hope you understand how educating even just one person on the aspects of MMA can be a step closer to its legalization. In conclusion, it's evident that MMA is very misunderstood, and most of its naysayers think of it as nothing more than a reincarnation of gladiator battles in the Colosseum. However, the statistics show that it is quite the opposite, and I hope I've convinced you of that today. Thank you.
Woo, Alex!
Sorry.